Khamzat Chimaev lives up to the hype as he dominates Dracus du Plessis to win the middleweight championship of the world. Lerone Murphy has officially announced himself on the world stage with an incredible KO against Aaron Pico. Carlos Prates from the Fighting Nerds does what the Fighting Nerds do, and that is get another viral knockout. MVP dominates at 185 pounds again, leaving his future in doubt, but in a good way. And Elliot rolls the clock back as he equals a record, being Kaya Sakura. People, is UFC 319 reaction live? Let's talk about it. Yes, lovely people. Hope you're well. Please do smash that like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel as well. On the road to 8,000 subs and trying to get to 10,000 before the end of the calendar year. And UFC 319 is in the books, and what a hell of a card it was. Gonna just do a main card review. Gonna do a full card review with Colin Crandall on Tuesday, which will probably come out on Wednesday. So make sure you look out for that. But UFC 319, man, it was billed as a great card. And my, oh my, did it deliver. Like, what a card from start to finish. The main card was just superb. 4 finishes out of 5. Sorry, 3 finishes out of 5 fights. But even the 2 that didn't go, that did go to the decision and did go the distance, still very enthralling and entertaining throughout the whole fight. Look, anyone who knows, covering fight cards in the UK can be really tough because we watch them late. So our fight cards in the UK start at 3 in the morning. Usually we don't finish until around 7 in the morning. This time we were done by 6 a.m. That just goes to show the finishes on the main card. We're not playing about. And look, we've got to start with the main event, which wasn't a finish, however, was a very, very entertaining fight. Shout out to Dilos, shout out to Vamos and Ribovics in the comments section as well. Right, got to start with the man of the hour, and that is the new middleweight champion of the world, Khamzat Chimaev. And look, going into the fight, many people thought if Khamzat's going to win, he's going to win early within the first 2 rounds. If he doesn't, Drake is going to take over in the later rounds and win by a stoppage in the later rounds, or potentially claw things back from round 3 to 5 and maybe get a unanimous points decision win. That wasn't the case at all, though, was it? Khamzat Chimaev came out within the first 10 seconds. Dracus du Plessis was on the floor. Within the first couple of minutes, Dracus du Plessis was in this position, the crucifix, which anyone can tell you. If you've ever been in a crucifix position, it is horrible. And we see some very good crucifix finishes over the course of the last few years of the UFC. You think about Valentina Shevchenko versus Jessica Andrade. You think about Daniel Cormier versus Volkan Oezdemir. And look, it looked as though it could be heading down the same route. However, I will give credit to Mark Goddard. The punches that Khamzat were landed were not devastating enough, in my opinion, to stop the fight. And granted, du Plessis was able to get out of the crucifix, and it happened more than once in the fight. And both times, Mark Goddard handled those situations really well. Now, granted, in the 5th round where he stood them up, or started to stand them up, it reeked a little bit of trying to appease the hierarchy in UFC, who often talk about what an exciting fights and exciting finishes and drama. I didn't agree with those stand-ups, but Mark Goddard is a fantastic referee, so obviously he might see something different to what we see watching it on TV. That being said, though, Khamzat Chimaev was completely dominant. His wrestling was excellent. His composure was excellent. His cardio management, which I think is something that has been overlooked, was absolutely insanely good. It had to be, because we all know what Dracus du Plessis is. He is someone who has an insane will to win, and he is so good at being able to claw back victory from the jaws of defeat. However, he wasn't able to do this time, and he was dominated from start to finish. He had a little flurry in the 5th round, managed to get on top of Khamzat, but Khamzat reversed it in no time and then was comfortable again. And look, this is a worrying sight for middleweights because Dricus du Plessis has been on a tear and he's been beating some of the best in the world. As in, he beat Darren Till, then he beat Derek Brunson, then he beat Strickland, Izzy, Strickland again. Now came up against Khamzat and he had no answer to the question of balls. And if I'm a middleweight, I'm looking at this thinking we need to all work on our wrestling. And again, Khamzat didn't really use his striking in this fight, but even when they were on the feet, for the brief times they were on the feet, he wasn't really getting touched or hurt. So it's going to be a really difficult puzzle to figure out with Khamzat Chimaev, as we've seen so far. 170, 185, no one's been able to beat him. I'd say Gilbert Burns probably had the best performance. Usman looked as though if the fight was longer, he could have maybe taken over. Apart from that, Khamzat's been invincible so far, and what a way to usher in a new era of the middleweight championship. And it's going to be very interesting to see who he gets as his first title defense. But I'm looking forward to see what happens next because, look, he was absolutely brilliant, man. And he just once again showed why he is effectively the best in the world at what he does. And look, there's even talk of him going down to 170 pounds again. I'm going to be honest with you. If I'm a 70 pounder, I don't want that guy anywhere near us. Leave us alone. Why put yourself through that wake? I'd be saying everything in the media, saying, why put yourself through that wake up? What happens if you miss weight and all? If he goes back down to 170, he wins that belt as well, in my opinion, with the caliber of fighters that are there. Once he rehydrates and everything, I think he's just going to be too good. So let me know your thoughts, guys. Does Khamzat beat everyone at 185? If not, who would you like to see him fight next? On to the co-main event of the evening, and England's very own Lerone Murphy. When is his fight? And I've always compared him with Leon Edwards a little bit. Technically brilliant, not loud on the mic, very reserved and humble, but racking up the wins and just still being overlooked. He won't be overlooked anymore. Not after yesterday. And look, Aaron Pico started really well, really aggressive, came out, started putting on Lerone Murphy from early. And like me, Luke, James, shout out to those guys who did the watch along with us. Starting to think the worst and think Aaron Pico's going to pull something out of the fire here. Like, he looked so good. He looked hungry. His boxing was crispy. He was landing some excellent body shots that were physically and visibly shaking Lerone Murphy. And then Lerone Murphy started to time him. And James Redmond said it. He was like, look, he's starting to figure him out. He's starting to get the counters off. And me and Luke were like, yeah, but he's also still getting caught a bit. And then before you know it, look at this picture. This is just after he lands a spinning elbow, people. And what a spinning elbow it was. And look, it's the second one of the night. We'll speak about the first one of the night. In the first round, absolutely starches Aaron Pico, guys. Like, and I'll be honest with you, for the Bellator guys who have coming over from Bellator to UFC recently, it ain't been pretty. It's actually been really ugly. I don't think I can think of anyone winning since Michael Chandler did against Dan Hooker. It's been ugly, guys. And it is, again, it's kind of showing the levels and difference in competitiveness between Bellator and UFC. But Lerone Murphy, man, if he ever needed a way to announce himself on the main stage and say, look, I'm next for the title shot, that was it. And again, Volk, the champion at 145, said, let's do it in December. I'd be over the moon for Lerone Murphy gets that title shot. Deserved as well. Now, granted, I don't think it's cut and dry. Even though he just had that sensational knockout win, I don't think it's cut and dry. I think what happens between Diego Lopez and John Silva could potentially throw a spanner in the works for Lerone Murphy. But as of right now, he's got next. As of right now, he's a talk of the town. As of right now, he's the featherweight making the most noise apart from the champion. And I'm so happy for him. Anyone who knows his story will know how incredible it is for him to be in this position. Anyone who knows his story and followed his story knows how hard he's worked to get to this position. So kudos to Lerone Murphy. Congratulations. And I hope you go all the way and I hope you get that title shot. On to the fight that everyone deemed to be potential fight of the night, the show stealer, the fight, the people's main event almost. And that was Carlos Prates versus Jeff Neal. And look, Jeff Neal said he was only going to train for one fight. Carlos Prates said he didn't see the fight coming out the first round. Me, Luke, and James said we don't see the fight coming out the first round. Credit to Jamie Phillips as well. He said the fight's not coming out the first round. And barring a couple of seconds, we were all going to be wrong. And it was a very good first opening round. Like the first round was incredibly good, like fun. Both fighters landing heavy strikes and rocking each other, and you're thinking, yeah, this is the sort of fight we want to see. And then you're thinking, okay, it's going to go to round 2. Let's see who's got more in the gas tank and who can really put a marker down in the next round and maybe get a finish. Carlos Prates says, forget all of that. Round 1 you wanted, round 1 you're going to get. And he stops Jeff Neal with a spinning back elbow, walk-off KO, and made it look easy. Carlos Prates is scary at 170 pounds. And look, Ian Gary has to get credit. He fought 2 fighters who have already been on this card. And he beat both of them, Carlos Prates and MVP, who we'll speak about shortly. We got to start putting some respect on Ian Gary's name, man. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm his biggest fan or he's the most exciting fighter on the roster. He's not. But we got to start really putting some respect on Ian Gary's name because his victories are starting to age really well. Daniel Rodriguez just beat Kevin Holland. Carlos Prates just beat Jeff Neal. 3 fights. He beat Jeff Neal as well. Jeff Neal hasn't been doing badly since he beat him. He beat RDA in the fight before this. MVP's beating Shara Bullet and just beat Cannonier. We got to really start putting some respect on Ian Gary's name. I really do think we have to start putting some respect on his name because not only is he beating these guys, but the guys he's beaten are still going on to have very good wins after he's beaten them. Again, not the most exciting way he's beating them, but win's a win, right? W's a W. So we got to start putting respect on Ian Gary's name. But back to this fight. Again, Carlos Prates. What more can you say? One of the most exciting fighters in the world, not just at 170, but in the world. Like the fighting nerds are just going from strength to strength. They've got someone in the 45-pound division in John Silver, Mauricio Hufi, who everyone says might just be the best fighting nerd. You've now got Prates in comfortably, probably in the top 10 now at welterweight, and you've got Kai Bahalio, who's potentially one fight away from fighting for the middleweight championship. Look, the fighting nerds, they're doing well, man. And Carlos Prates might just be the most exciting out of all of them. What a finish. And I can't wait to see what he does next. Look, he said he wanted to fight in Rio for his next bout. It's not too far away. I think we have an opponent potentially. And that's a nice transition onto this man. Confident, cocky, slick, smooth. All the adjectives you can think of when it comes to speaking about Michael Venom Page and his poise and his striking. Michael Venom Page has always fought at 170 pounds pretty much in MMA. And he came over from Bellator. In fact, he's probably... Sorry, I made a mistake talking about Dan Hooker. He came over from Bellator and won his first fight against Kevin Holland. And he's been been very good. Only one defeat in the UFC. He's come over and he showed the levels. He showed he's at levels. He showed he can handle the bright lights and the glitz and the glamour. But he's gone a step further than some of these guys. He's gone up a way. He took Shara Bullet's everyone thought Shara Bullet was the next guy and he destroyed him on the feet. Now, we all know Cannonier is not in his physical or prime or in his best. But again, I'm not going to take anything away from MVP. Cannonier is extremely dangerous. We saw what he just did to Gregory Rodriguez. He beat up Robocop really bad and got a finish. Robocop, who just got a win against Hermanson. MVP completely dominated this fight. Now, I know he lost the 3rd round because of a takedown and such. That was a mistake by his part. And I'm not playing that for Cannonier. Cannonier controlled him, was really good. Got full mount a couple of times, but wasn't able to do anything. MVP is so elusive and so smart with his fighting IQ. And look, he has now got so many opportunities at his feet. Does he fight 185? Does he go back down to 170? In fact, if I'm not mistaken, he's ranked higher at 185 than he is at 170. And he's now throwing his name in the hat and said, yeah, I'll fight Carlos Prates in Brazil. Carlos Prates versus MVP at 170 pounds. Carlos Prates isn't someone, in my opinion, who's going to take MVP down or try and take him down. You're going to try and knock him out. When's MVP at his best? When someone stands with him trying to knock him out. Sign me up. I'm going to do Matchmaker Monday later on in the day for if you guys are in the UK, or tomorrow if you're watching this abroad. I'm 100% behind this fight. 100%. I don't know what Dana White's going to be like. He didn't say no to the fight, but I think deep down he knows that could be a bad fight for Carlos Prates in Rio. But hey, I'm looking forward to that fight. That is going to be a hell of a fight if that happens. And MVP once again showing his dynamism on the feet, showing his IQ, his quickness, his speed, his timing, and once again proves a lot of doubters wrong and goes up to 185 and stops a game opponent. I'm extremely intrigued to see what happens next. If he does get that Prates fight, if he doesn't, I'm even more intrigued to see what he does next. But MVP, salute to you, man. Doing absolutely incredible things. And on to the first fight of the evening, and that was Tim Elliott versus Asakura. And Asakura, look, came over from Rising. His first fight was for the title, and look, he lost to Pantoja devastatingly via a rear naked choke. But who hasn't Pantoja beaten up recently? So you're looking at that thinking, okay, well, it's fine. It's Pantoja. Everyone's lost to Pantoja at 125 recently. Tim Elliott's a tough fight, though. And look, Tim Elliott, I still maintain, has given DJ one of his hardest fights in UFC. Tim Elliott is a wizard on the ground. However, on the feet, Tim Elliott can be hit. And he was getting pieced up a little bit in the first round. But then he started to find his timing. Then he started to land a few. Then he started to get a bit more comfortable in the fight. And then once he got that takedown, he looked really good. And his transition into the guillotine, at first, it didn't seem like it seemed like he had a one-arm guillotine at first. And you're thinking, oh, he's got to try and get that other hand. Once he got that grip, pause. That's crazy. Once he got that grip and then was able to cinch up the guillotine properly, that was it. And look, Asakura is a bit of a crossroad now because he was ranked number 15. He's just lost to Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott's still doing the business. If I'm not mistaken, he's now got the second most amount of finishes at a flyweight in the UFC, which is brilliant. A great stat to have. And yeah, man, Tim Elliott did the business and looked really good doing it. So I'm really intrigued to see what happens with both fighters next. Because I think if Asakura had won this fight, I think the fight you make is him versus Tatsura. That didn't happen. I'm very intrigued to see what happens next. Let me see what some of your comments are saying. Shout out to Dilios. Shout out to Vamos says Murphy versus the winner of Lopez versus Silva or Volk. Here's the thing. You don't want to keep Volk waiting too long. You've still got Evloev on the horizon as well. It's a weird division because Lerone Murphy has now just thrown a cat amongst the pigeons. I don't think anyone expected Lerone to do that. I think a lot of people banked on Lerone Murphy winning, but didn't expect him to do it like that. I think it's healthier in this situation. I think you have to wait and see what happens with Lopez and Silva first, and then you make a decision after that. But we'll see. Big up Cringe Gov, big up Scraps. Jason in the building says many men say the fight was boring because Khamzat was cuddling him. Look, here's my thing. Maybe I'm in the minority when I say this. Maybe it's going to sound a little bit like a rant. We've got boxing, you've got glory kickboxing, you've got Muay Thai, you've got all these other striking sports. If you don't like the wrestling aspect of it, why do you watch it? Now, granted, there's wrestling like Khamzat does, and there's wrestling like others do. I'm not going to mention any names because it's going to come across disrespectful. Khamzat, for me, was always chasing a finish or a better position. That, to me, is how wrestling is meant to be done in MMA. If he was just holding him and not doing anything, not trying to advance position, etc., then I'd probably be like, oh, that was boring. But at the same time, you know what Khamzat's going to do. So if you can't get up, if you're Drakus Duplessis, you can't get up. If you're Kevin Holland, if you're Kamaru Usman, who was able to get up, if you're Robert Whittaker, can't get up, that's not Khamzat's fault. Is Khamzat meant to stand up and give someone a 50-50 fight when he knows he can take it to the ground and make it a 90-10 fight? No, of course not. If I'm look, I'm not condoning this, but if I'm in a street fight and I see someone's a better boxer than me, but I know I can kick the hell out of their legs and then I can get home safely, I'm not going to stand there and do boxing with this person. I'm going to kick the hell out of their legs, get home safely, and call it a day. It is fighting at the highest level. You're meant to get a victory with the least path to resistance. I'm guarantee you MVP could have done the whole jiu-jitsu and wrestling stuff with Jared Cannonier, but why do that when he knows he can just outstrike him? Like, this notion of people just moaning about wrestlers. Guys, there's so many other options. Why don't you watch the other stuff then? Why don't you watch it? I don't get it, man. Shout out to Ottoman Turk, big up yourself. Shout out to Dilios. Again, how good is he, Gary? Yeah, look, I think we've got to start putting respect on his name, man. Rick says, bro, Chamayev going to convert to Christianity after those cruise fixes. Now you crazy. But yeah, big up to my brother Imran as well. Big up Misha, you know how it goes, Imran. Big up the family as well. But yeah, look, for me, if I'm going to rank 319 overall, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10, man. That main card was fantastic. The first fight was very fun. MVP fight was fun. Prates versus Neal was incredible. Lerone Murphy's finish was incredible. And look, even the Khamzat fight, like, I know people say, oh, you know, he just took him down. Think about the walkouts, how fun they were. Think about the face-offs. Think about when they, you know, squared up in the center of the ring before they were even given the final instructions by the referee. Like, think about how the fight started. Think about how lively the crowd were. This, for me, was 9 out of 10 for the UFC 319. So, you know what? When we moan to the UFC when we say these cards aren't good, when they are good, salute, round of applause, and incredible stuff. Look, people, I'll be back. If you're watching this in the UK, I'll be back later on today. If you're watching this anywhere else with a different time zone, I'll be back on Monday for MMA Monday and Matchmaker Monday. So you'll have 2 shows for the Sanderson show and potentially dropping another video as well. So look out for that as well. Shout out to Rick says, bro, these cards go too late. Do you think Paramount deal will change the start and end times? No, I don't think so, unfortunately. I think they'll always cater to the American crowd, unfortunately. I think what will happen now is because they're not really pay-per-view driven, when they go to other countries, I think they'll do cards at their times as opposed to just ours. In my opinion, they need to start main card about 2 hours earlier. Look, I'd love it. I tell you what, if they did a main card from 1 till 3 or 1 till 4, I don't think people understand. Like, for me personally, again, not to go deep into my personal life, but like me, Luke, and James Redmond, we finished a watch long about 6. I had a quick bite to eat, and then I went to bed. But then I was up about 9:20. Me and the missus took the kids to church, and then didn't get home until about 3 in the afternoon, and then I had to sleep. I had barely had any sleep, so I slept from about 3 in the afternoon till around 7:30. But even that's only 4.5 hours sleep, and I'm doing this now. And look, I've got a busy week ahead, so yeah, I'm not going to sit here and moan about it. But yes, it would be a lot nicer if we could have the cards earlier. But I don't see that happening, Rick, unfortunately. So I can't moan too much, brother. But people, look, if you haven't already, do smash that like button and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Make sure you look out for other videos coming out, and make sure you switch on the notification bell. People, it's been a pleasure as always. So I'll see you again. But mind how you go, and thank you for watching the Sanderson Show. Take care, people.